Hello, everyone, and welcome to Facts Supporting Life. My name is Ingrid, and thank you very much for joining me today. I just wanted to talk about these 5 crucial misconceptions that we seem to have when it comes to sin. As mankind, we seem to have a very interesting perspective on sin. Us being secular-minded or not, us claiming Christianity as our faith or not. Our misguided perception on sin causes us to perpetuate the matter of sin instead of addressing it accordingly. So to go ahead and get started on this, so the first very misconception that we seem to have is that when we are sinning, we are doing what we want. We don't seem to understand that sin already has causality. Sin already has the author of our fallen state, who is the father of the sons of disobedience. So when you're sinning, you are yielding yourself as a servant to obey to this author of your fallen state. You are empowering his will. Now, the Word of God tells us that he cannot empower us back because he is not our creator. Romans 6:16 is telling us that we need to know that whomever we yield ourselves as servants to obey, his servants we are to the one we are obeying. It means you are yielding yourself as a servant to obey to the sin that keeps you separated from your God. Now, sin requires obedience. It's just that you don't know that because sin does not want you to know that. It is not doing what you want. And this is leading us to the second misconception that we have, that somehow sin directly affects God, not us, mankind. Job 35:6 is the one that is asking this question. If we have sinned, what effect do we have against God? If our transgressions are multiplied, what do we really do to God? God is in heaven with the multitude of angels who know who he is, who knows that he is a holy, righteous, good God, and they worship him 24/7. So what do we think happens to God when we steal, when we deny that he exists? Now, Job 35 verse 8 tells us or gives us the answer that our wickedness affects only men like ourselves. And also Jeremiah 7:19 does the same thing. It is us who get hurt when we sin. We need to think about it also this way, that if you have officials who put a sign here says no trespassing because this area has radiation, but you ignore that sign and then you break in, you go inside the area that has radiation. What happened when you go inside? Are the officials who put that sign get hurt by you breaking in and exposing yourself to that radiation? Are they the one who get hurt? Which is basically leading us to the third misconception, that somehow God punishes us, mankind, due to him being hurt by our sin. Due to him being hurt by our disobedience. He wants to control us and put us in line, but we're not listening. Let's use the same illustration I used earlier. If you get cancer because you got exposed to radiation, due to you disobeying the clear sign says no trespassing because this area has radiation, does that mean that the officials who put that sign gave you the cancer? Obviously, we know that's not true, right? Romans 6:23 tells us that the wages of sin is death. The wages of sin is you being separated from your God. In your God, it is life. When you are in right standing with your God, you are in life, which is light to me and you. That's what the Word of God is telling us, that life is light for me and you. We were created in this light, and God separated darkness from this light. So think of radiation as darkness. So when you are separated from this light, you are exposed to this darkness. Darkness is like radiation to us spiritually, right? It's like radiation to the body physically. So Darkness is like radiation to us spiritually. It harms us. It causes all this dysfunction. So you don't want to be separated from this light, from this life that is in him. Isaiah 59 verse 2 is telling us that it is our iniquities that is causing the separation between us and our God. It is like cutting that umbilical cord. So all this mayhem that you see around us, it is due to our sin. Not because God punishes you. That is leading us to the fourth point that we need to make about our misconception. We somehow think that sin is fun and it is exciting. And again, that is not true. As a matter of fact, sin is not fun. Sin is not exciting. It is opposite to that. John 10:10 tells us this, that the thief only comes to steal, kill, and destroy, not for you to have fun and an excitement. Now, I know that, sin uses pleasure in some way. But, we need to understand that pleasure belongs to God, not to sin. So sin really uses this pleasure against you, taking advantage of your ignorance, just the same way as the pedophile, or pedophiles in this case, because there's a lot of them, same way as the pedophiles who uses candy to catch children. Again, pedophiles did not invent that candy. They're just using it. Sometimes they lace that candy with drugs to make it easy to capture these children. And that's exactly the same reason Satan, the devil, uses pleasure against you. In that way, it is easy and it is not so much work to catch you. Which is basically leading us to the final point. That somehow sin is freeing us and it's keeping us away from rules and regulations, the law of God. The very thing that is there to protect us. We don't want it. We don't want to be protected. We don't understand this, that sin really is there to enslave us and keeps us in a perpetual cycle of insanity. We remain separated from this light, from this life. So all these illnesses, diseases that we can think of, perversions, corruption that we can think of, the injustice, the wars, the pestilence, you name it, they're all due to sin. They're all due to this author of our fallen state's will. They're not due to God really punishing you. And that's definitely not freeing you, because the law really was there to protect you. 2 Timothy 2 verse 26 is reminding us that the devil, the Satan, put on snares to capture us and to keep us captive for his will, not for us to be free. That is just a lie, to say you're going to be free and you're not going to have law. Again, your ignorance is being used against you, because really the law is there to protect you, not to harm you. It is for you, not against you. Sin is there to keep you in bondage. It needs you as a slave. So I'm going to go ahead and close this with this. Sin is there to harm God's will, and me and you, creation, is God's will. And now God has done everything that he can possibly do to remove sin. He first abolished it on the cross. And now we're waiting for judgment. Why? Because God wants to remove sin altogether. But the issue is our ignorance is there as a bulletproof, is there protecting this sin. And, sin needs us ignorant, because if we're not ignorant, then we're not protecting it. We're not protecting Satan if we're not ignorant. If we know who he is, we're not really protecting him, because God then will remove us, the sons of disobedience, with the father of the sons of disobedience. He's going to remove all of that. But you need to understand who you are. If you don't, God cannot impute sin where there is no law. Romans 12:2 tells us what God wants us to have. God does not want us to be conformed to this world. Our world is fallen. But he wants us to transform our mind by renewing it. And that way we may prove how good, how acceptable, and how perfect his will is for us. How perfect his original intentions for us creation is. So that's my prayer here, that we are renewing our minds. And that way we know how harmful sin is and how good is God towards us, mankind. So thank you so much for joining me. Go ahead and stay tuned for the next video and stay blessed.